He is to rappers what Kobe is to this modern generation of basketball players.
100%.
You know,
100%. They love. I'm just saying, when we put on the music and forget about all the Jesus stuff and all the shooting people stuff and the Black Panther stuff, is his music as good, as intelligent, as complex as what Biggie, 3K?
Depends on what you ask.
What it make you feel is what it comes back to.
Right.
Man.
And answer your question, yes, it was complex. It was intelligent. Yes. What did a lot of that other shit inform the lyrics?
I also think you're overstating the intelligence of some of these other people that you're bringing up.
Wasn't, right? I'm like...
Because nobody was more political than Tupac as a rapper.
Well, let me ask you this.
I don't know about that. I mean, Chuck, Cube. I think
but you kept see, this is why I feel like there's a window dressing going on here. Because you kept throwing up Nas in that intelligence list. You ever listen to that song he made for the kids with all the factual? The song for the kids with all the factual errors in it.
I know
I can.
And
he was
what I want to be.
I get what he was trying to do, but he was telling them things that were factually untrue.
All right, here he is.
Celebrate the 50th anniversary of hip hop, my heart and soul, my cultural home. I wanted to bring in two of the guys I love talking about music with, Bomani Jones and Michael Smith. They've been on the show before. They're friends. They love hip hop as much as I do. They love to argue as much as I do. We got into a great, deep, awesome argument and discussion about all of hip hop. I hope you love this conversation as much as I do. Let's get into it. It's Bomani Jones and Michael Smith talking about hip hop on Touré Show. Michael Smith, what's up?
Bro, I'm just happy to be in y'all presence.
Bomani Jones.
What's going on, man?
Thank y'all for coming back once again. I want to celebrate the 50th anniversary of hip hop, talking about it all with you. I'm curious, take me back to the beginning of your relationship with hip hop. What is your first moment, your first memory of like, what is that?
I don't know the first time I heard it. I'm younger than hip hop, so it's always been with me. But I would say when you asked me that question, the first thing came to my mind was, so I am the grandson of a Baptist pastor. My grandfather was a pastor of a church in New Orleans for 50 plus years.
Wow.
And so I come from the day and age where that parental advisory explicit content, you could not play that loud in my mama's house.
Wow.
So remember BMG? Order them CDs?
Sure.
I remember I found a way to order 4 CDs without my mama knowing. One of them was People's Instinctive Travels in the Paths of Rhythm. One of them was The Chronic. I forget what the other 2 were, but I remember those 2 in particular. And I'd have been about 13 years old at that point? 92? Yeah, I was about 13 years old. So that's my first memory, is ordering those 2 CDs. Tribe Called Quest.
But why did you want those albums? Like, weren't you introduced to hip hop before that?
I don't remember. Okay. I honestly, I don't remember the first hip hop song I heard. I'm sure I was. I'm sure whether it was in movies that I was growing up watching.
Sure.
I remember Deep Cover. I remember Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. My dad took me to see Deep Cover. That was one of the first movies my dad took me to see. That's real nostalgic, right? My dad took me to see Deep Cover. That says a lot about our relationship.
He's like, I'm going to see Deep Cover, and if you would like to come with me, you can. Or you can wait in the car.
Yeah, right.
For 2 hours.
Clearly, they were not checking ID at the movie theater. So I don't remember the first hip hop song I ever heard.
I remember driving on Route 138 in Boston with my mom and her station wagon. And Rapper's Delight came on the radio, and I was like, what is that? And I think we had heard snippets of people rapping, like a little 3-bar, 4-bar, whatever. But like, the whole song is like, whoa, what is that? And it grabbed me right away.
So I think part of what's interesting in what you describe, and like where my story is a little similar to his, is one, there's just enough of an age difference, right? Where you're born in 79, I'm born in 80. So by the time we kind of have a consciousness of it, rap is around. So I don't have that, oh my gosh, I've just heard this interplanetary force moment ever. And we also grew up in the South. And see, it's interesting because I was born in Atlanta. We moved to Houston when I was 7. You were born in New Orleans.
Right.
Atlanta and New Orleans are cities that jumped on rap as soon as it came out, right?
Huge.
Like Planet Rock is an Atlanta staple and always will be. New Orleans, when it created its own lane in that. Houston, not quite the same. Like, not that there wasn't rap in Houston, but it wasn't really, like, it didn't just hit there. A lot of places that took a while before rap, came around. So, like, in my house, my mother, I used to ride to work. I mean, well, she was going to work. I was going to school. I ride with my mom both ways. My mom listens to news radio. So, like, I was not hearing what was on in the radio. Like, I'd pick up on it. Like, you come here and there, you watch some rap. Like, yo, MTV Raps, man, came on late at night. I wasn't like, getting around to checking that. The moment that I always remember, though, and it's not like it was, like, the first time I heard rap, but it was, like, for me, like, the first time I fully got what was going on. And it's when that first Outkast album came out, Southern Playlist and Cadillac Music. And the reason was, for me, the part of Houston that we lived in had nothing to do with what the rappers in Houston were talking about. I did not live around the corner from the Ghetto Boys, right? Like, I could not make sense of that. The Atlanta that Outkast was talking about, I knew those streets. I knew those spots that they were talking about. And it was like, all of a sudden, like, somehow it hadn't dawned on me that people were listening to that stuff and being like, oh, that's me, right? Like, to me, it was just like something to listen to. That was the one that for me was like, oh, okay, I'm here. I see exactly what it is that you're talking about. Right? It landed for me in a bit of a different way.
I'm glad.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm glad you brought up Southern Playlistic, because, and that goes with what I was talking about earlier. I flash back to my 8th grade classroom in New Orleans, and that's all we were listening to. Or I flash back to a bus trip that we took to visit HBCUs from New Orleans, and it was a bunch of guys. It was a young men's group. And we in the back of the bus listening to Soul Food when that first came out. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, for me, I can't really like, oh man, I heard this song for the first time. When did I fall in love with hip hop on some Brown Sugar stuff? I don't have that, but every experience in my life, there's a soundtrack too, and it's almost always hip hop.
Sure. See, you talk about the way you talk about Outkast. Right, De La Soul was kind of that for me, because I mean, like I said, I remember Rapper's Delight, I remember Run DMC starting to come up, and then they're huge on Johnny Carson. And here's a cassette that just has a boombox on the cover. I had heard no LL Cool J singles. I know who LL Cool J was, but the cassette has a boombox on the cover. That's for me, and that album was the shit. And I'm loving it, but I didn't realize. I'm like, it does seem a little over there, even though when I heard De La Soul, I'm like, yo, that's me. That's what, if I could rap, that's what I would be. It's suburban, right? It's intellectual, whatever. I'm like that. So you're like, I see Outkast in myself, or I see myself in Outkast. Now I'm fully sucked in. So wait, so who was the group or artist that you were like, okay, if I was in the shit, that's the representative of me?
Because I'm like you. I grew up in New Orleans, but I wasn't in the Master P, Cash Money, New Orleans areas. So I'm like you with that.
I love New Orleans rap, though, like, because I don't even consider, like, Master P, that's more like a West Coast hybrid, right?
That's fair,
But like, when you start talking about, like, early New Orleans bounce, like Manny Frederick, Gregory D, and all of that stuff, I'm like, no, I'm all the way
DJ Jimmy.
Yes. Because that got to Houston. Like, I remember when that one came out, and I was like, oh, this is a game changer.
I would say less who was me, but who I would have liked to have been. You mentioned it was LL. Yeah, I would say his persona is who I thought I could be if I had that level of confidence and, was licking my lips and whatnot, and ladies love. There was nothing cool about me, but who I would have aspired to have been.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I would love if you had the audacity to be like, I was 7 years old and I saw LL Cool J, right? That's me. Like, the most perfect rapper that God created, and that all the girls love, and you was like,
That's who I was aspiring to be. But was I LL? Hell no.
So wait, okay, number one MC of all time?
I said KRS-One last time, and I'm gonna say KRS-One again.
Okay, all right.
It's Black Thought for me.
Okay, I'm not mad at that.
It's been Black Thought for me.
I mean, I think what Jay-Z has accomplished is just bigger.
But how you define? But see,
that's like
how you define.
If we're talking about like a capitalistic construction, Jay-Z wins, right?
Sure,
if you're like, I have elevated myself from this place and gotten to this other place. How good it is to actually be in that place, completely different discussion. But if you want to put him there, you can. The thing with me with KRS, and I went back and I watched some stuff on YouTube the other day, and I was watching when the verses with him and Big Daddy Kane. if you were to just bring somebody on stage and all you got is that person and say, make this work, he's doing it.
Yeah.
I don't need no drums. Just give me a microphone and you will never be able to take your eyes off.
KRS is incredible, and he's made a lot of really important records that we continue to talk about, and Black Cop and Beef, and like going back to Criminal Minded, and like it's an incredible career.
So, again, half my brain right now is just in flashback mode.
Sure.
So it's like I remember watching I'm Gonna Get You Sucker with my grandparents growing up, and Boogie Down Productions performing at the end of that. You know what I'm saying? Like, or you mentioned Big Daddy Kane. I feel like the first, because I gave you the CD memory, but now I'm thinking about it. I feel like the first tape I had was the one with Smooth Operator on it. Mm-hmm. You know? And so me not knowing nothing about Isaac Hayes, but I knew what Smooth Operator was. You know what I'm saying? Not knowing where the sample came from or what have you. So, but Black Thought for me is just the when you ask me who number one MC all time, I don't go to like record sales. I don't go to the Capitalistic Construction as you mentioned. I go, who do I like listening to? Sure. Who's the first? If I had one person to listen to, it'd be Black Thought. It'd be the Roots.
He's insane.
Nobody has a better command of the language, in my opinion.
I mean, it's an incredible flow. It's an incredible voice. All that. I don't even think about Jay-Z's sales. I don't think we should consider sales in these conversations.
Cool. So you think he's the best MC?
Oh, yeah.
Like skill-wise?
Oh, yeah.
Content?
In terms of flow, in terms of what he's talking about, in terms of, leading the league in triple entendres all time, without a doubt. Like before, if your favorite rapper got one triple entendre, he's fucking lucky. Jay-Z just throws them off like it's
at a certain point, I just stopped enjoying listening to Jay-Z, and I can't really explain to you why.
Well, I could explain why it probably is. I think 444 is a serious exception to this, but like I remember listening to Magna Carta when it came out, and I think I wrote about it, and I was like, this is not a revolutionary. This is not Che Guevara. It's a dude selling you a Che Guevara T-shirt, which is like where he was at that particular point in time. And I think what happens, and this isn't just simply about him. This happens just about everybody. It's gotten past the life that any of us can actually relate to. So when you're doing songs about buying artwork, man, don't nobody care. But that's your life, right? This is what you do. You should rap about that. I personally just don't want to hear you rap about that. And I think that it's when it could like, hey, I just need to show up and blaze a verse on somebody else's stuff. Like Andre's been pulling this for the last 20 years, Jay-Z too. But the only time you hear him now is when they finally decide it's worth it for us to hear it. So of course it's going to be a smoker. It's going to be a smoker every single time.
That's my number 2, by the way. Not that you asked. 3 Stacks.
3,000, 100%. And he's definitely in the conversation.
What makes Andre a better rapper than makes Jay-Z a better rapper than Andre?
Oh, well, for one, I think there's more.
You talk about triple entendres.
There's more. He's done it more, right? Like I've had more great seasons than you have.
So that's longevity for you?
Yeah, that's part of it. And like Jay-Z has duds. Magna Carta was whack, right?
Yeah, Jay-Z has a high quantity of he's a volume shooter.
Yeah. He's a volume shooter. But he'll win a championship, and then he'll be, first round loser. And then he'll win a champ.
But his catalog is so large. He gonna win a lot of those debates. I'm just talking about on pure skill. I just don't think Jay-Z is a better rapper than Andre 3000.
It's hard to be the greatest MC to me. It's hard to be the greatest MC of all time and be a simply capable live performer.
Interesting. See, that's an interesting point. And yes, the stage is not Jay-Z's best. He's better in the studio than he is on stage. I stopped going to Jay-Z concerts because I'm like, he did it again. It's boring. He just stand there and be like rapping a song. Like, do something.
His whole concert game to me is so amazing and underrated. Like the whole, I'm going to get somebody who can do stadiums, and then I'm going to say, we did stadiums. Hey, Justin Timberlake. Hey, honey.
But no. Jay-Z can sell out a stadium.
No, he cannot.
100%.
No. He might be able to sell out. He can sell out a stadium like for Summer Jam here or whatever it is. But if Jay-Z could sell out a stadium as a headliner, he wouldn't have been doing these co-headline stadium. His greedy ass would have absolutely been taking all that money himself if he could sell the stadium by himself.
Here's the thing that I'm saying, right, is that when Jay goes into a concert, his idea is just stand there, right? Kanye is giving us a show.
Yeah, Jay does not have a vision.
Beyonce gives us a show.
Yeah, he's not a vision. Like, I think he's not terribly different than me in the sense that he's not like a visual type, like conceiving of this whole thing. That's not what Jay-Z's going to give you. But what Jay-Z has is the catalog, right? So you go to a Jay-Z show, and this is why it's wild when you go to those co-headline Jay-Z shows, because he's playing Heart of the City and nobody there cares. That's how I know he ain't selling out these stadiums, because he's playing the real Jay-Z songs where I'm like, oh, okay, this is what's up. And nobody down there cares, right? But if you're in a room full of people who know Jay-Z's music, it becomes about the songs. It becomes about the relationship that the audience has to the music, and it becomes a sing-along, and it almost doesn't matter. It's just about the set list that for some reason he always ends with that Young Forever joint.
I don't like that song at all. So wait, we all said New York, well, we all said East Coast MCs, right? Thought, KRS, and Hove.
Interestingly.
Who's
Three Stacks.
He's your number 2.
Yeah.
But so
so number 1.
Who's your number 1 Southern MC?
I guess I answered
3K.
Yeah, I think
would, 3K.
I guess I would probably say Andre. I think that's a much longer list and tricky. Because the thing about Andre is we've always heard him in the context of a group. Right?
He hasn't been in a group in a long time.
But okay, we also haven't heard anything. What I'm saying is that we ain't really heard him do more than one verse at a time.
Right.
Like Andre, I mean, Big Boy has got a solo catalog now, that Andre doesn't have. A dude like Scarface, who's just fucking incredible and has album after album after album that he has had to carry himself. How do you compare that to a dude that you hear drop a verse or two at a time? That's where that gets hard for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think his biggest competition is Wayne. Lil Wayne should be top 10.
You talking New Orleans here.
Lil Wayne insane.
He is. It just depends on how interesting you find him, because I can't listen to a lot of him, right?
Right.
Like, I think of him kind of similar to the way that I think of Busta Rhymes, in that when they are rolling, they are absolutely incredible.
Sure.
I just don't necessarily find myself interested in 14 tracks of that.
Whenever I've given lists, I have specifically cited No Ceilings Lil Wayne as one of the handful of greatest.
Yeah, at his best, man, he's just I mean, also
that dude.
Also, when he was 15.
When he was really little.
Where he doesn't. That's what he doesn't get the credit for. He was 15 rapping with grown men, and it wasn't
he was the star.
Right.
Yes.
It was like, hey, he's rapping just as well as we
Now
are.
you want to talk about check every box?
Yes.
Live performance,
catalog,
longevity, ability,
flows, voice.
He checks. He checks every box.
Oh hell yeah! See, I feel like even now, Wayne top 10. A lot of people would immediately go,
"No, he's easily top 10.
Definitely top 10.
Easily. That's conservative. Yeah.
So is the West Coast? Is it easy? The best of the West Coast? I think that's pretty easy, right?
You going Q?
No.
Oh, you going Pop?
No. What? I don't even. Pac is interesting.
Don't shit on Pac, please. Don't do that.
I like I say, you
We'll get to that part of the conversation.
You'll be doing it by yourself, buddy.
We can get to that part of the
Even
conversation.
if I agree with you, I wouldn't be saying it.
No, it's Kendrick.
I prefer, as a rapper, the peak of Ice Cube is better than the peak of Kendrick Lamar. I could make the argument that Ice Cube has 2 albums that are better than anything that Kendrick Lamar has done, and that's not shade to Kendrick Lamar.
No, of course not.
And I'm saying, those are the 2 Ice Cube solo albums. Straight Outta Compton is more or less an Ice Cube album, and he bodies that from start to finish. You can make an argument that Ice Cube went from 0 to the coldest in the game, Straight Outta Compton alone.
Very fast.
Yeah.
I love Cube. Incredibly important MC. I think Kendrick is more complex.
Yeah, see.
Flow,
we did this before. We did this before.
Kendrick's is more complex.
Complexity to be intrinsically valuable, and I do not.
Yeah. Okay. I mean,
you like super rappers. I ain't really about the super rapper life. That's
not to say Cube lack complexity. You're just saying more complex.
So just in general for us, right? In this conversation, if I say somebody's better than somebody else, I'm not saying the other person is whack.
All right.
Cube is incredibly important. I love his music. I love those solo albums, right? I mean, Cube getting with the Bomb Squad was important for me as a New Yorker. Because we were still like, I don't know, but the West Coast NWA was dope, but I don't know. And then when he's like, yo, I'm linking with them, so I'm on your sound that you like. And I'm like, yo, these albums are incredible. And then it was like, okay, fuck it. The West Coast is in, they're cool, whatever. We talk about the South also had to prove itself to New York, right? And then it did. But there was a moment when New Yorkers were like, I don't know about that.
And they blew you off the map.
No doubt.
Just like to bring that up every now and then.
No doubt. I mean, Atlanta has become the center. New Orleans is incredibly important. Some people say Memphis is the center of hip hop now. And I'm like, really?
I would say this, that as you listen like to what Atlanta was 15, 20, going in 20 years ago, right? So like the Gucci Mane sound that you had come up out of that, a lot of what you hear of drill, it's a pretty short line to Juicy J, DJ Paul, and 3 6 Mafia.
But this is
like the sound of rap really did come out of Memphis for a good.
This is our difference that I think we come back, you and me, Bo, because you're saying I give too many points to complexity.
Yes.
And like, I love KRS, right? I know KRS, right? Like I wrote a book with him, right? Like we went on tour through Europe. Like I know
that sounds
man.
like a challenge.
It was a challenge. It was a whole thing. But I'm like, yo, Rakim is doing flows, diction, internal rhymes, his whole thing, the stuff he's talking about. He's a philosopher.
Yes.
In the 80s, nobody was doing philosophical. And so I'm like, his whole thing is way better than KRS's thing. But I'm like, and they're standing next to it. It's hard to compare 80s rappers to 90s rappers. Like, they're contemporaries. They're going on tour. They're talking about to each other, right? They're watching. What do you do? Like, Rakim's music is so much more complex than KRS.
And that's a nice thing to say.
But
it's like, fuck complexity.
But I mean, like, so if we kind of bouncing around the map here, can I ask, just to revisit something, like, is Jay-Z actually better than Nas? Like,
is Nas better than Andre? My homeboy brought this up the other day. Is Nas a better rapper than Andre?
100%.
Why?
Oh, 100%. You go so extreme, Touré.
Again, I mean, not saying 3K is whack.
No, but you said 100%. That's not a slam dunk.
I mean,
if you want to make an argument for Nas, I could live with that.
The quality of the rhymes, the quality of the flow, the quality of his voice. I mean, Nas is number 2 for me all time.
But see, and this is what I'll say, and I get where you're coming from to a degree. I think that very often, this was kind of an argument that Cube was making in 96 in the West Side Connection phase, and I think that we've seen other people make, which is that the idea of who is the best rapper or best MC of all time being determined by a bunch of dudes going like this.
Nodding
and I have been that guy, right? I have been the dude at the Lyricist Lounge tour where all we doing is standing there with our hands in our pockets, not a woman to be found, and we just
it's such a boys club.
We just going like this. Like those are the people who make the determination. But sometimes you got to look up and see what the effect and impact is that these people have, not just on the connoisseur. And see, and that's where I think that sometimes we get into the Nas space. Because look, the story of Nas just remains so amazing, right? Like, this is a story that we would tell thousands of years later. Word emerged of a golden child in the concrete jungle of Queensbridge, and everybody came one by one to visit and find out if the child was real.
I went to hell for snuffing Jesus, and the whole world was like, we will listen to everything else you have to say.
Yeah,
we love you.
And everybody just kind of one by one were just going, and they're like, no, it's real. And like the idea...
Illmatic was that shit.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then the product that resulted from everything that we've heard, this is years after Live from the Barbecue, all this, right? He shows up at 14 and he does this. And then you get there and he actually turns out to be that dude. Like, it is an amazing tale that in this new era of technology cannot be replicated. But see, the thing was, then he kept rapping. And the heights of what happened after that are very, very high, we would all agree. But it's been a hit or miss ride.
He's a hit or miss guy.
And so
he's doing well now.
Well, you know what's crazy?
He's running on is nice.
Because he finally got comfortable with the idea of who he was instead of trying to be everything.
He told me he likes a challenge, right? Because I was like, you know what the big criticism of you is? And he's like, yes, I do. What is it? That I pick whack beats.
Oh, yeah, and he likes to pick these hard beats so he can...
But he picks mid beats because if he picks the monster beats, he's like, that's too easy. So that's how good he thinks he is. That I don't want Shaq on my team because I want to be the guy, he's so not good. The producer.
He's saying he's so good, he makes himself worse.
I mean, you're not always going to hit... Wait, okay, best woman of all time?
Lauryn Hill.
Damn, dude.
Easy.
There aren't a lot.
Shit, I don't think you do. Don't even limit her to women. Like, we all do the Serena thing with Lauryn Hill. Do the Serena thing that you do in tennis.
Absolutely.
Like, don't limit her to just best women. She's in the conversation with best period.
Well, see, you had
she's in the conversation. No, I'm not saying top 5.
No, I'm saying you had to cross it over.
I'm saying you do not need to limit her to best women in terms of her ability.
But
she just does not have the body of work to back it up.
That's a problem.
Hold on,
But I
hold on,
don't
hold on.
need that,
The
though.
body of work is only as much of a problem as we decide that we want a body of work to
Boom.
be.
Well,
And that's all I'm
somebody
saying.
who said Black
Biggie
Thought.
can't control it. He dropped 2 albums.
No, but I'm saying this, but go across genres. Everything we're talking about from Jimi Hendrix is between 1966 and 1968, for
Sure,
example.
the Beatles are 7
we don't.
years, sure.
Yeah. Guns N' Roses is living off one album, right?
Well, it's 3 albums. The double album was incredible too. Actually,
I'm gonna keep these. Yeah, I'm a focus. I'm a focus.
Because we can go off on that if you want.
That could turn into absolutely not the podcast that anybody clicked on here to listen to is me trash and use your illusion. No, nobody came around on that one. But with Lauren as a rapper, and she becomes a very interesting contrast to kind of the wave of female rap that we have now. And I do not want to be the back in my day, women carried themselves.
No,
you don't want to be that.
Yeah.
But there was an organic quality to
Lil Kim was around at that time.
Yeah.
Foxy Brown was.
But with Lauren, there was an organic quality to the way that she did this at that. Like, I do find that the way that we push female rappers now, the ideas of femininity are often so over the top at this point, right?
Look,
like it's very clear. And Lauryn Hill's thing was she looked very much like somebody you knew and was rapping better than anybody else, while also like the femininity came through at every turn.
Sure.
Yeah. Right? Like
there's no question in that.
In this very masculine art form. Like it wasn't like she was like, I'm just doing what these dudes been doing forever. No, it was I am doing this.
Her album, she's in a classroom talking, a male teacher talking about love with these students. Like that to me is like what a woman would think to do. And it's beautiful and it's deep. And her music has a guiding spirit that is deeper than I want to sell units. I want to
also make rap sound really, really easy.
Yeah,
like
that's
when you
what I'm
listen
saying.
to her, you be thinking like, no, you can't do that.
There are 2 people who, if they just decided to rap, change the conversation. Lauryn Hill and CeeLo Green. If those 2 people just decided to rap and not do shit else, because you said Lauryn Hill's music, which is different from Lauryn Hill's rapping.
Yeah, we're having a different
things.
discussion.
Of course,
You know what I'm saying?
I'm not giving her credit for singing in the rapping conversation, but both of those people have a deep relationship to spirituality, right? Which gives their music which KRS does as well, right? KRS would have a song at the end where he's talking about Christianity and spirituality, and sometimes you couldn't understand the song,
but what Jay-Z lacks.
Like, well, part of what I think most rap songs are about, the thesis of most rap songs is I'm the shit. Right? And
where it starts.
I'm on the street with the shit. I got more money. I got more girls. I got more whatever it is. I'm the shit. I can rap better than you. I'm the shit. And I think in a lot of ways, Jay does that better than anybody else.
He's up there. I think I was having dinner the other night with a very well-known and established television writer. And somebody was asking him about writing drama. And he gave him a tip that'll stay with me forever. He said the key to writing drama is in every scene, the main character has to have something that he wants and cannot have. Like that is what is essential to having drama. And so that got me thinking back to the Pimp C Jeezy beef around 06 or 07. And Pimp's point always was his criticism of what Jeezy was talking about, aside from his questions about whether or not Jeezy could actually procure his cocaine at the prices that he advertised, was that there was no remorse. Right? There was nothing at any point that was like, yo, I don't know if this is what I should be doing, right? There's no track like High Life on there, anything like that. And that's what Jay would kind of throw on like Regrets at the end of the first record. You Must Love Me at the end of the second
Regrets
record.
is a very important record.
It's a very important record. It's also the worst record on the album. You Must Love Me. It's an album with a lot of really good songs.
Regrets is not the worst.
It's an album with a lot of really good songs. But he never sounds truly convincing to me in that place.
No, come on. My brother shot me.
Right.
I feel that. I feel that in my heart.
Because that time your brother shot you and hit you right there at the same exact place. But I mean,
no, the way he's telling the story, I'm there with him. I believe
I just shot my nigga and ran off into the night as if my nigga.
Yes.
I feel like you could have done a little better than that. I don't find him convincing in those spaces. I found that the reason the Blueprint hit so hard is that for the first time he could hit those emotional spaces. Like that was for me. Selling there are things I want that I cannot have has been a difficult place for Jay because his whole steez is I can have.
I
whatever
always
I
win.
want.
I never lose.
Right, and that's my point. And that's
Who's the most slept on MC in your opinion of all time?
Slept on.
So, in your opinion, who should be considered much higher than they are?
Besides Black Thought? Because I think I'm in the minority on that. I still don't believe he gets the credit he deserves.
Dude, the thing is, for me, this list is so long. And like the people I throw out, I know the first name I'm gonna throw out. I'm not saying this is the definitive answer to this, but it's an answer.
Yeah.
Get ready. I'm gonna look at you, and you look at him, and tell me how this goes.
Okay.
Juvenile should be way higher up on people's list. Told you that would happen. Told you that would happen.
What? Juvenile?
Just fucking wreck shop on Tiny Desk.
Please continue.
Yes, he did. First of all, he wrecked shop on Tiny Desk. You go back and listen to 400 Degrees. He is wrecking shop. I told you as a person, and I did it because I knew that you would do that.
I'm not saying
we can go back to big time if you want.
I'm saying that's your number one.
I did, but I told you it wasn't number one. But in terms of underrated as an MC, and by the way, a game-changing MC, a legitimate MC and pioneer, because Bounce for the Juvenile is one of the most important rap records that anybody's ever made, right?
Okay.
Like, that is the genesis of New Orleans Bounce. Starts there.
But that wasn't him, though.
Bounce for the Juvenile?
That wasn't him. No, that wasn't him.
It wasn't him?
No, that wasn't him. But coincidentally, but I don't believe that was him.
I'm almost positive it's him.
Okay, now you're gonna make me feel bad.
You got like the T Tucker dude did like DJ Jimmy. It was the T Tucker cat. I forget which.
If that was if the dude that did Bounce for the Juvenile is juvenile, then they sound completely different.
But he was like 12, 13 years old.
Maybe it was.
Who else is on your list of most slept on?
But before you answer that though, real quick on Juvenile, I just want to echo your point about. So there's reasons why somebody could be underrated or slept on. Mm-hmm. Juvenile, especially from a contemporary standpoint, has been reduced to back that ass up, or even you know what I'm saying, without really recognizing his body of work and how brilliant an MC he actually is.
But also, I would argue not appreciating the impact of Ha itself. That is one of the few singles that you can say there's a before and after.
Yeah, nobody did anything like that before.
Huge part of the rise of Jay-Z is tied to him jumping on that Ha remix, being terrible on it. But it was the cosign of that for Cash Money to New York. But also on the other side, it was Jay-Z being one of the few New York rappers to be like, I'm going to come down there and do what it is that y'all are doing down there. The video, which to me is the greatest rap video ever made, right? But that was the one that truly ushered the South in. Like, No Limit was still seen as a novelty. Outkast was kind of seen as, oh yeah, they from the South, but they own thing. I would say
that and Big Pimpin', which coincidentally both featured Jay-Z.
I could say Outkast, because those of us New Yorkers who want complexity, who want intellectualism, who want to be hit where Chuck D and Nas were hitting us, Outkast from the beginning. I remember my man calling me like, yo, you heard that Southern
they landed.
Yeah, that's the shit.
Yeah, they landed
from
in
the
a
beginning.
Way.
Them and a slightly lesser Goody Mob, would hit New Yorkers on a level of like, yo, that's that shit, because they were able to speak in a way that we were able to understand. I don't think, to me, and not a knock, but I don't think Juvenile hit where I want what I want from hip hop. So it didn't land for me.
I encourage you to go back and do it again, because I think what happens to us with a lot of those things when they come out in the time, because 400 Degrees came out 25 years ago. We're locked into what we thought about it then.
True.
I'm telling you, if you go back, I don't think that most people in your position were able to truly get around the accent, past the gold teeth, and everything else to appreciate exactly what was going on.
Oh no, definitely not. Definitely not. The South had, let's say, a performative. Let me not put an adjective to it. The southernness of it took a while for New York to understand. All those things, they talk slower. You know, the things they were talking about, they're just doing themselves. New Yorkers were used to going faster, being more overtly intellectual. It took us longer to understand what they were doing.
And that's what I say.
And guys like T.I., who I can rhyme just as fast as you New Yorkers.
I think T.I. is slept on in terms of, like, he and Ludacris both. Those are for real deal all-time greats that we have to think about in those contexts.
Yes.
Killer Mike has slowly become somebody that I think is, like, some people are born to rap. Whether you agree with what that dude is talking about, that dude is
So wait, who else is on your, you said you just threw out Juvenile just to fuck with me.
No, I threw it out there because I'm
I mean, you mean it, but you said that's not my number one most slept on. Who is your number one most slept on?
That's a good
Bun
question.
B comes to mind.
Who?
Bun B.
I feel like it's been a long time since he's been slept on, though. Like
Yeah,
that's what
that's fair.
happens is we wind up throwing out
What
people
is slept on? What does that mean?
don't nobody sleep on.
That
Yeah.
that you meet, what I love them, and I'm like, why don't you?
I tell you, somebody slept on. MC Ren is slept on.
Really?
Even if you're just talking about it only in the context of the NWA stuff, right? Like, he ain't Praz. Right, the people like,
He's
oh
not
man, we
Praz.
had Cube out here, we had these other cats, and then this MC Ren dude
But
who
is
we
he
don't
as
even get
good
good
as-
parts in the
But
movie.
is he Fife? Is he as good as Fife?
He's better than Fife.
I got one.
Better than Fife.
I got one. And we ain't even brought up, because we talked about mostly individuals, we ain't talked about groups. Inspector Deck. Inspector Deck.
I mean, Deck is dope.
When you
Deck
talk
gets a lot
about
of
Wu-Tang
respect.
members, like he is not somebody that immediately comes to mind.
Yeah.
But some of the dopest verses, and a solo album wasn't great, but some of the dopest verses in Wu-Tang history come from Inspector Deck.
100%. I mean, for me, Jay Electronica, the music.
He slept on.
Or he's just asleep
I
somewhere.
feel like we're very awake of relative to his actual level of output. I feel
Oh
like
my
we're more
gosh, we're
awake than
talking
we
about
should
body
be.
of work. Okay, like we waiting.
Yeah, like who's that person that's
But you want to talk about your man Jay-Z? Beat the shit out of Jay-Z. Jay-Z called himself getting on Jay Electronica album. That didn't go well for Jay-Z at all.
It ain't go well for Jay Electronica either.
I loved that. I love that album. I love that album. I love that album.
No,
I thought that album was great.
Hold on.
But
Okay,
but Jay-Z was the second best rapper on that album, for the record.
maybe. Okay, wait. So I think it's important in hip hop to divide duos from groups, because
Fair enough.
duos and groups are doing different things.
There we go. Slept on. Now that you bring that up, and I don't know how we allowed this to happen. EPMD,
Yeah, dope.
wildly slept on.
Well, who's the best duo? And then later we'll
Outkast.
go into groups. So you got to have two people.
Outkast.
Do they both
Outkast.
have to rap? Because
That's a
I
difficult
would say
question.
yes. I would say
Eric B. and
yes.
Rakim.
I would say
But I mean,
yes.
like in the 80s, there was a lot. They are a group. Eric B. and Rakim, they don't really like each other, but they are performing together to this day. Right? So, like,
I mean, your man Chuck D is another example. Is that
that's
is that a group?
That's
Oh,
a group.
That's
That's a group.
It's a
Right?
group.
Because Terminator X
Right.
is part of the group.
And Flavor Flav
100%
is not
Flavor
just
Flav.
a hype man.
Right.
He would do his own songs. Right?
All right,
And
so duos?
I mean, it's complicated.
So we're talking duos.
duos, right? There's only
UGK.
two people in the group.
Outkast for me is
See, because
one.
like I would
Okay,
include
UGK.
Gangstar is a duo,
Gangstar,
right?
okay.
Premier is very important,
Yeah.
right?
So that'll be a
That's a duo.
Yeah, okay.
Right? Because
So,
there's only two. So Primo don't rap,
Right.
right? Pete Rock raps, quote unquote. That's a duo, right?
Yeah.
But we don't go to it for his rapping, right? So so both people don't have to rap. It's
from a contemporary sense. You just mentioned it. Run the Jewels.
interesting.
Yeah, it's just tricky because they 40. No, I'm just saying, like, I can make an argument that Run the Jewels is the best rap group working right now,
Yeah.
but it doesn't really matter because of the age they are. Like, you can make very, very, very good music, and I go to all their shows and I highlight them at the show, like all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean the same thing as it would if somebody's making the same quality of music and they was 25 years old.
Outkast is the best duo.
Yeah.
I don't
right?
think there's much of an argument.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, if they both rapping.
Who's the best group?
Wu-Tang? Wu-Tang or Tribe? Wu-Tang or Tribe? That's a tough one between those two for me.
I think that if you were to ask me like whose music I enjoy the most, like Wu-Tang, it also gets unwieldy because there's so much stuff and like what we're talking about, right? And Tribe is up there, but sometimes we just need to not get too cute. The greatest rap group of all time is probably Run DMC.
Interesting.
You know, and I think something about that older rap that we don't give enough credit to is there was nowhere to hide. Like, you are a tennis guy. The thing that makes tennis so compelling is there's nowhere to hide.
You're alone.
Right? Like, you out there, you are by yourself. So, like, the Wimbledon final with Alcaraz, we watched him fall apart in that first set. But there was nowhere to hide, so he had time to get himself back together and figure it out. But you, like, it's you. Dude, what all you was working with was basically a microphone, some turntables, and a drum machine. It is you.
I don't
and like
think-
in them two dudes, as commanding as they were, and the energy that comes through on just once you get to tougher than leather, it gets a little.
They were
wonky.
kind of alone as far as they are the first superstars of rap culture, right? So they were kind of alone in terms of determining, like, well, how do we do it when we get to like a stadium level and we're the first on Johnny Carson and the first in Rolling Stone, and like, how do we, so they're groundbreaking. And I don't think you can understand if you weren't there. They were not controversial everybody loved Run DMC.
Yeah.
There was no, I think Ice-T said this in the document, there was nobody was like, well, I don't like Run DMC. Like, because even the white kids were like, well, there's rock in there, so I'm fucking with them for that, right? So they're able to take it to, for me, see, I keep calling, I like complexity. De La Soul, love Wu-Tang, extraordinarily complex.
We had group now, huh?
I love De La Soul.
We already talked about
That's
NWA.
my heart. That's to me the number one group of
De La
all
Soul?
time.
Yeah, see, like, and these things get tricky because, like, for me, when we start talking about like personal attachment, it gets into a different space, right?
Well, it's music.
Oh yeah. No, but I'm saying, but like, there's a way, in part because I've been covering sports for so long, that you have to be able to back out and be like Dominique Wilkins is my favorite player of all time.
Sure.
You know, comma, however, there's some limitations,
Right.
right? They don't make me love them no less.
Sure.
But like, I listened to, because I picked up the self-titled Run DMC album on vinyl the other day, and when it's like that, jumps out there, And when you think about how little they have to say, it's just the commanding presence of their voices and their sense of rhythm and all of that. You can complex this all the way up and put all these other things on top of it, and you'll still wish you could strip all that down just to get those things.
But to me, and I know I'm co-signing a late 80s, 90s group, right? If Run DMC is the greatest group of all time, we've never advanced since the early 80s.
But I don't think it means that we haven't
since
advanced.
the mid 80s. Nobody's outdone. That's the way. I think we talked about this before. Babe Ruth is the best babe. So nobody in 100 years is better than Babe fucking Ruth.
I don't think it's so simple as just the idea of outdoing. So much of it is capturing a moment and capturing a feeling and being able to convey that. And it may be that the baddest motherfucker to ever do it happened to come out in 1980, right?
Jim Brown's still the best running back.
Yeah, you know, right. So somebody can make more complex music and we can find new things, but feelings are very basic. And not have the people come around that maybe could do technically better things, sure, but can they get you right there in the same way?
The group that does
Not
that
necessarily.
is the Roots. I mean, just being consistent. Like number one MC is Black Thought. The Roots would probably be my favorite group. We're talking best of all time. That's another part too that I always struggle with hip hop conversations: favorite versus best. Because every question you've asked, I'm answering from me and
of course.
here.
Yeah, of
but
course.
best, I mean,
Like Outkast is still like my thing. I have a fortunate overlap on that one. I don't have to start qualifying when it comes
This
to
is
Outkast.
where it starts to
There's a much
drive me
argument with
nuts. Like when the kids, if you talk about Drake as your favorite rapper, that's your personal belief, and that's fine. If you say he's the best, now you've stepped out
That's what I'm
of
saying.
your personal shit, and now I'm triggered, and now I'm upset.
Yes.
Because there's no fucking way Drake is the best anything.
Right.
Not of today, not of like what the fuck.
That's why I try to be particular, right? Why I would not argue with you about what you said about De La Soul, right? Because it hits you in that very, very particular place. Like, wouldn't fight you. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like, they not my favorite group from Long Island. But get where you're coming from. Cool. We can all live on that one. It's when we start telling other people they stuff is whack.
Yeah.
That's when the fighting starts coming up, you know?
What is do you have a general critique of the genre? Because we were all in this 40, 50 years, right? Well, I'm in it 50 years. Y'all in it for 40 years because y'all kids to me.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
I didn't realize y'all was a decade
When the
younger
first
than
time
me.
you heard hip hop? Like, shit, I don't know.
I was already in it.
Out the womb.
You're like hip hop natives. But we've been in it and loving it for a long time. We speak as insiders who love it in our heart. But, you know, without being like, get off my lawn back in the day. But, you know, I miss the political spine that used to be so important to this. I learned a lot listening to Public Enemy, listening to Poor Righteous Teachers, listening to KRS-One. You didn't even have to be a political rapper. You might have one song on your record that's talking about the police or the free breakfast program or the Panthers or whatever, right? Shout out to Paris, right? Like Kendrick will give you some of that, right? The Roots might give you some of that. But I feel like overall that has kind of gone away.
Yeah, like, when's the last time we had some rap with some good old-fashioned crack pop religion in it? Rap was a lot better when we got some crack pop religions, right? Like these cats, like The idea that any of us outside of New York know anything about the 5%ers is entirely
All from
about
hip-hop.
rap.
Gods and Earths.
And I'm better for it. I feel like I'm better for it. Like it ain't my steez. It's not what I'm going down,
Right.
but I feel like I'm better for it. But
It
I
was
do
the black
think,
press,
I'm
man.
not supposed to eat pork? I didn't know that. Okay.
But you're right. There was a fundamental spirituality. And I say this not as a spiritual person, not as a religious person, any of those things, but I recognize it makes all the music better, right? Like there is a lack of what I would call an organic foundation, I feel like, in what I guess what we would term as mainstream rap. Because there's somebody out there doing all these things that we're talking about, right? So I was like, ain't nobody doing this. There's probably greater levels of variety that we have. But I think you're right. The spine of it doesn't really feel like much anymore. And it feels like, I've always felt it's a bit cliche to be like, rap came from the street. The street's a broad term. There are a few different streets. A few cul-de-sacs rap came out of, but it did come out of something that was on the ground, right? It feel like it all come from the internet now, right? Like the point of origin is sitting at your computer as opposed to being around people.
See, to that
being in
point,
groups.
I felt like before, if you came out of Newark, I got a sense of what's going on in Newark. What are y'all driving? What is the color y'all like? What club do y'all go to? Houston, we like candy paint, this, da, 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 da. What kind of drug are y'all doing? I know what the drug of choice is in Oakland because y'all talking about it and the dance. And okay, I got a sense of what streets are y'all, what restaurants.
Right.
It's very nationalized now.
Yes, it's the worst thing to ever happen.
Where are you from? I don't know. I love A$AP Rocky. I just listen to music. Would you know he's a New Yorker? Like,
No, I wouldn't know.
And that's not a critique of him, but of the genre in general. I appreciated the specificity of it. This is my community I'm talking about. We don't really do that anymore. I miss that.
Can I ask you a question? Like, we've gone this entire conversation, not to go back to where you were and run that, but like we didn't talk about Biggie or Pac. We ran away from him shitting on Pac for self-preservation purposes. And I think I referenced Biggie and said it wasn't his fault he only dropped 2 albums. But how do we have a whole conversation about greatest MC?
I think we should have a few more conversations where we don't talk about them. And it's no shade
And
to
not
them.
not from a beef standpoint.
No, not from, no.
Okay,
I don't.
yeah.
I mean it all.
They overshadow.
Yeah, like what I feel like happened, and you were more in the weeds in this at this time, but the years 1994 to 1997 is really when the mainstream rock press finally showed up in earnest
Interesting.
to the rap scene.
Now we're talking coverage.
And that's what they got,
Yeah,
right? Like it was
yeah.
these two figures, and especially if you're just some white dude from New York. Imagine how fascinating it is. The gangsters from the left side of the map and the gangsters from the right side of the map, right? And you've got Puff, who is this fascinating character himself, and then you've got Suge, and you got all the gang stuff, and you got everything. And so it was like suddenly there was this rise to these are the top 2 rappers of all time from a lot of people, when we hadn't even really truly come to the conclusion that they were the top 2 rappers in 1996.
Sure. Yeah.
But conversely, you use the word overshadow. Does the coverage, does the drama, does the East Coast, West Coast beef, does that whole thing overshadow just how fucking great they both were?
I think it overshadows how great Tupac was. And he makes the argument that the greatness of Tupac actually comes as a result of all the coverage.
No.
But last time I was here, you told me that if we strip away all the drama from it, how great an MC are we really talking about?
You just said what you missed in hip hop. That was Tupac.
If I could erase all the stuff that happened outside of the studio, shot a cop, beat up the Hughes brothers, blah, blah, blah. I mean, Pac was viral before there was the internet. We were constantly talking about he went to a restaurant and wilded out. He shot somebody here and got away with it. He's a Black Panther child. And I love all that, right? And it was real, right? It wasn't like made up and fast. But all of that gets wrapped in the conversation about Pac.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about Big, 3K, KRS, Chuck, the greatest MCs, I'm like, Pac is not rapping on that level.
Yeah, right.
If he's in your top 10, I'm like,
why are you limiting it to that though?
Yeah.
I think
What do you
that's
mean?
the same mistake as limiting it to record sales. It's like Pac.
No, I'm talking about what do I hear when I press play?
Right, but this is
That's all I'm talking
what do
about.
you hear?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
see, that I think we're about to get to the same
Yeah.
point, right? And this is where it becomes like the delineation between how you feel about De La versus what we would say like best or whatever. I was talking to my man about this, who was like, when he plays Me Against the World, it is his cousin's life, right? It's not his, but like all the triumph, all the tragedy, everything else, he hears that life. Like there's a whole subset of people, and I always said I recognize I was not into Pac like that growing up, like other people were. Because quite honestly, man, we was kind of Huxtabling over here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Got these Professor Parrots, got this pool in the backyard. I'm looking at Pac like, damn, dog, be easy, man. It ain't that bad. But for him, it was that bad. And those times were that bad for so many people. And those people who hear Pac and they're like, this is my life. This is my story. This is my struggle. Nobody's ever hit in that way for people who were in that space.
You asked us the question earlier, like, who did we see ourselves in? Like, how many people saw themselves in Pac? Or wanted
I know.
So
I know.
I think, Touré, you can be a definitive figure in hip hop and not be, from a skill set standpoint, from a substance standpoint, you may not be among the greatest of all time, but you can still define this genre. And you can't tell a story of hip hop without Tupac being in the first chapter.
And he sits
I think that's really well said.
And let me ask you this though. How many rappers? Because like the thing that makes Pimp C a dope rapper, no matter what anybody says, is the outright sincerity. You believe every word. Oh, I had to brace myself. You never know with this guy. But like he meant every word he said. Pimp C's favorite rapper is Pac, no question. That was the thing about Pac. No matter what it was that he was talking about, man, you believed every single word.
He's like hip hop Jesus, right? In that almost everybody who comes after him is basically like praying to him. I think there was a while on Cribs when it was like, all of you have shrines to Pac in your house somewhere? Like, Jesus Christ. I'm not
He is to rappers what Kobe is to this modern generation of basketball players.
100%. You know? 100%. They love. I'm just saying, when we put on the music and forget about all the Jesus stuff and all the shooting people stuff and the Black Panther stuff, is his music as good, as intelligent, as complex as what Biggie, 3K.
It depends on what you ask.
What it make you feel is what it comes back to.
Right.
Man.
And answer your question, yes, it was complex. It was intelligent. Yes. What did a lot of that other shit inform the lyrics?
I also think you're overstating the intelligence of some of these other people that you're bringing up.
Wasn't, right? I'm like.
Because nobody was more political than Tupac as a rapper.
Well, let me ask you this.
I don't know about that. I mean, Chuck, Cube. I think.
Yeah, but you can't. See, this is why I feel like there's a window dressing going on here. Because like you kept throwing up Nas in that intelligence list. You ever listen to that song he made for the kids with all the factual? No, the song for the kids with all the factual errors in it.
I know
I can.
And he was what I want to be.
I get what he was trying to do, but he was telling them things that were factually untrue. All I'm saying is a lot of what you would call it intelligence is really just being a good poet. And so I think that very often plain spokenness is treated as not being as intelligent when the real move is to get there and get to the point as quickly as you possibly can. And say what you want about Tupac, you understood exactly what he was talking about on the back end. If I got to go back and listen to it twice, you probably didn't do your job as the rapper.
I mean, in the point to relate to people, and no matter, I can't relate to getting shot, but everybody relates to Tupac.
This is where you and I fundamentally disagree. You're like, if I have to listen to it twice, you didn't do your job.
Probably not.
No. If you are
you can listen to it twice because you just want to process it more, right?
You could say something deep, and I got to listen to it 2-3 times to fully
process
get it,
yeah.
to fully understand what you're saying.
My job as the communicator is to make myself as easily understood as possible. I'm saying. But I don't think you give enough credit for people who go about this in such a way to where you get it the first time.
Okay, so there's two things true. That's true, but you could also miss something that was so subtle. That's what I'm saying.
Rakim, you did not understand that first time.
No, you can't.
Black Thought is the master that. I got to listen to Black Thought 3-4 times.
I understand it deeper.
That's cool, but I'm saying that there can be a value and a demonstration of intelligence in simplicity.
Different than some other art forms, the musician wants you to listen to it over and over. So if I get it too fast, right? If I get your message too fast, too easily, what is there for me to rediscover on a 7th, 10th, 50th listen? I remember
that is such a narcissistic way to look at your own work.
I need you to listen to it over and over. That's what music is. That I expect you to listen to it again and again, right? And if I keep getting new things out of the music, I feel rewarded, right? I remember listening to Public Enemy. We did some trip in college to England for like a month or some shit. and I would go on jogs listening to Public Enemy. I think it was the third or fourth album. And every fucking time I'd find some other thing. I didn't realize Chuck was saying that. I didn't realize Hank had put that piece of sound there. And I'm like, you keep giving me more every listen. Each listen is rewarding me again.
Yeah.
I love that. I don't want to understand it the first time. I want to keep having to go back to it and get more out of it.
That's how you're going to feel when you go back and listen to 400 Degrees again. You're going to go back and find all these things that you didn't find in the first listen. I'm just saying that a lot of these people that you talk about probably demonstrate some of those same qualities. You just ain't going back and listening twice because it don't sound like it's supposed to be what the intelligent music is. And that's what I think comes, like, when I hear what you're saying about Pac, I think there's definitely levels and layers to all, especially in terms of emotional coding and all the things that are going on within one song.
We talk about Pac, and you make me think about there's been so much death in hip-hop culture. I was trying to think, what was the first, I think Big L was the first big notable death?
Well, Big L died in 97?
Was it that late?
I think so.
I think he was a little earlier than that.
Pac died September of 96,
right?
Big died March of 97.
Yeah.
Eazy-E died spring of 95.
And we had already felt a culture, I think, a culture of death before then, right? Some of them are unnatural, big, and some of them are natural. Trugoy, Bismarcky.
Scott LaRock died in, 87?
Scott LaRock is one of the early ones that, like, really hurt a lot of people and was like, damn, like, shit is happening out here. And I wonder, just, like, I don't think any other musical culture is dealing with that over multiple decades. And what do you think what is that about? And how do you feel about that?
Well, are they not dealing with it? Or is it not presented and packaged in the same way?
Right.
Because it's like, okay, so hip hop is black music.
Yeah.
So violence and death in the black community is covered, discussed, analyzed, and counted in a different way than violence or death in the white community.
Do you think that rock and roll is dealing with the same thing?
Mean,
I'm not saying it's pathological.
It may not be a drive-by in Las Vegas after a Mike Tyson fight, okay? Yeah. Or it may not be, quote unquote black on black crime. But I mean, Kurt Cobain killed himself.
Sure.
It did. Like, we start talking about late 60s, early 70s in particular. We definitely say that the pall of death around rock was.
There was definitely some of them, many of them. I feel like we have had a lot of it, right? And, like, I think it's an extension of some of what we're dealing with in terms of, there's a lot of crime and too many guns in our community. There's also
too many guns in America,
100%,
but I don't think
but there's also medical issues.
You're talking about from the streets versus the cul-de-sac. Like, you can't be a reflection. The content matches their lived experiences. Those lived experiences are going to have a shelf life if you're actually living what you're rapping about, as the case may be.
But also, it's young people with access to a whole lot of stuff, and they do dumb things.
But it's not just gunplay, right? We're way past that. Bismarcky and Trugoy and some other folks who died of natural causes way too young.
Yeah,
but that's not exclusive to hip hop.
No, but what I think is happening to hip hop though is that also. This is the first generation of hip hop to get into middle age, right?
Yeah.
And this is a point at which, like, people die.
We starting to know people that our age dying.
This has been like soul music and R&B. We had a whole lot of people dying in the 60s and 70s. And we had Sam Cooke get smoked in a hotel room a couple years later. Otis Redding dies in a plane crash.
Right.
I'm just throwing one out there, and like Minnie Riperton dies of cancer at 31. Tammy Terrell dies. Like Marvin Gaye dies at 45.
I mean, everybody has death. Are you saying that it's wrong to think that hip hop has had more than its share of death versus other musical cultures?
I think that it would be difficult to me to measure that comparatively. Like, I'm not in a place where I could say that just like for certain, it's more of us. Because like you go into heavy metal world, man, there's all kinds of them dying all kinds of times.
I think it's because of the glorification. You asked like a critique. Like, some people's critique is that hip hop glorifies violence. Mm-hmm. So I think therefore when it's touched by actual violence, like I said, it's gonna be viewed differently than in other genres.
But also, as this music in the popular space, at least for lack of a better term, I would say came of age in the 1990s, which was an era that was defined by all this violence, by all this murder. Why you got all these funeral dirges, right? Where, what was that terrible? The DRS dudes could do the Gangsta Lean song and have nothing else. Like, people were really, I didn't fully catch this because my life wasn't that, but people were really feeling them Crossroads funeral songs because they was going to a lot of funerals. Like, there was a lot of death that was associated with that time. And so I think that's become treated as like this classic era of rap. And so we do think of it in that way. But yeah, there's a lot of kids out here that are, and we see now, especially these, like, it gets me when you like open up the Apple News app and they'll be like, rapper blankety blank died. You ain't never heard of that. They just found out somebody,
so much of that.
like, once they found out George Floyd did a screw tape, all of a sudden he became a rapper. And I think that's why it feels the way that
I do
Michael's
wonder
described.
about that when I hear people who I've never heard of before, and were they really a rapper? You got shot in Memphis. Were you really a rapper? Or was that something you kind of did on the side and you're actually at FedEx or whatever?
But I love how we've incorporated the coverage of it all, because how many times, or how often I should say, has rap been weaponized?
Oh my God.
As like the reason what these kids are shooting one another is the rap music.
Sure.
As opposed to the rap music reflecting the fact that we're shooting one another.
Yes.
Whether you're white, black, or other. We have a gun problem in this country. It is a violent country. It was built and found on violence.
100%.
So the music is a reflection of that. But when we do it, it's cool when they do it. It's problem when I do it. Fuck it. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's interesting you say that. The weaponization of hip hop
all the way up to the highest levels of government.
Yeah, I mean, we've been seeing that since the 80s. It was huge in the 80s.
Yeah.
Definitely in the 90s. I mean, like, it's definitely called the cause of the problems in America.
Rap music and video games, right?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Do you still love it?
Oh, yeah.
You still love it?
Yeah. But I don't listen to anything contemporary. I'll be honest with you.
Nothing.
Well, I love it.
Practically.
I think I love it as an idea as much as anything else. Like, do I listen to a lot of contemporary rap? No. But that don't mean I don't love rap no more.
Correct. Correct.
But yeah. Like, there's still a dope ass rap song. There's still a feeling that I get from hearing that. That, like, I was listening to or I watched a couple of weeks ago the Prince live from Syracuse Purple Rain tour concert.
You watched that again? You put me on to that when it first came out.
I found a mastered version, right? Like, I found it. And I find that the things that I love the most, I listen to the least because I'm just looking, even if it's not something new in terms of the calendar, like new to me, I'm always going to something else, right?
Yeah.
And then you go back to those things that were your favorites and you're just like, oh man, it's on fire like it hasn't been, like, this is what this is.
Yeah.
And it still happens to me when I go back and just listen to something I love. There's something about a rap beat that still does it like nothing else can.
Let me correct myself. I said I don't listen to anything. I listen to Sirius XM Hip Hop Nation all the time. So I'm listening to what's. You talked about it doesn't hit me here the same way. I don't enjoy it. Maybe that's a me thing. Maybe it's less about where hip hop is today and more where I am in my life. 100%. That it doesn't resonate with me what they're doing now versus Outkast and Goody Mob.
I mean,
and Wu-Tang.
When we're younger, these
I
artists
love Griselda Gang.
Okay,
they're
amazing.
Yeah.
When we're younger, these artists become part of our identity.
Yeah.
I am a Public Enemy guy. That's who I am. That's what I'm all about. We got families, we got careers. It's not like that for us anymore. There's no artist who like represents who I am as a person the way you knew. He's always listening to Public Enemy. That's his shit.
Or I'm still listening to the guys that's still doing it. Like I mentioned King's Disease earlier. Nas still doing this thing.
Talk about to hear somebody interact with a beat in a really interesting way and like flow over a beat in I'm like, that's my shit. The kids are still doing it. They're still crushing it. I'm fucking with that. I listen to a lot of.
So what new dudes you like? You got some new dudes out there who you like?
I can't.
I mentioned Griselda Gang.
No,
I think they're great.
I can't necessarily sit here and say you got to fuck with such and such. My kids put me on like, yo, I want to hear Ice Spice. I want to hear Coi Leroy. I want to hear. We like Megan for a while. Still like Megan. She could spit.
Yeah.
They like Nicki a little bit. They fuck with.
Does everything have to be kind of sophisticated for you? Or can you just be amused by it? Because you know who amuses the fuck out of me? Moneybagg Yo.
every now and then there's somebody like Cameron had the amusing lane.
See,
Did a very good job. With
like
that for
I remember,
Yeah.
was it Lil B who came out of Oakland, right? Who was supposedly the worst rapper ever. I'm like, let me see. And I was like, yo, I understand what he's doing.
Yeah.
And he's not trying to do the thing that I want you to do to flow. But I'm like, yo, I understand you. I'm fucking with you. I like what you're trying to do. So it doesn't have to always be that. I'm like, I understand what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I get it. But I mean, yes, the that other thing, that intellectual thing does
Sure.
hit me harder. But I
We
mean,
become our parents, man. We just basically what we're saying is they don't make it like they used to.
No, they don't. What it is they don't make it for us.
Yeah.
we don't.
We're not the demo anymore.
Yeah.
See, one thing I had to realize, and I think I did a story on Amigos and really did a deep dive on them. And this is where I first started to realize in the 90s, it became more dense as far as more words per minute. The verses were like, like a verse would be like, let's say 100 words. In the 80s, it would be like 60 words, right? So you couldn't go any more dense than they were doing. So they had to go in another direction. So the songs get less dense. And some of us are like, well, that's less complex than what they were doing. And they add in ad-libs, right, to like make it, to fill in the space so it don't sound airy. And I had to be like, yo, that's dope. That's what they're doing, right? And that's dope. And that's their reaction to the complexity of the 90s. You can't keep going right? We wouldn't understand the word. And I don't like these rappers where I can't understand at all what you're saying. Who's that guy out of Chicago who could do like, 200 words a minute?
Twisted was incredible.
Twisted.
I could understand every word though.
That's great.
But like Migos are a great like example for me in bringing up where it ain't my generation, but them dudes are really, 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 really good. Like they are the greats of their time. Like I had to explain to somebody when Takeoff died, he's got to be like, no, for them, this is going to be like one of the Beatles died. And they do kind of matter that much.
See, I like Yachty. I fuck with Lil Yachty. And it's not like great flows, great diction, but I'm like, yo, I just like that kid.
See, you got me. This is where I'm like, oh, who?
Yeah,
like,
I never.
You know
like
Lil Yachty?
I'm very familiar with Yachty.
I
and
heard the name.
I just never got around to actually like seeing what was up.
He
Like
was the king of the
I like
teens.
Lil Baby. I like him.
Okay.
But I mean, it's like I don't like him.
I don't know
Again,
if it's cool. I don't know if it's cool to like
it's like
Lil Baby anymore.
No, Lil Baby is okay.
No, not
Da Baby.
No, not
Excuse
Da
me.
Baby.
Excuse me.
not
Da
Da Baby.
Baby.
Yeah,
We don't
Lil
fuck
Baby's
with
fine.
anymore.
Y'all surprised they ain't like scrapped it out about that? like at the like right
like
in front
Shaq
of
and Dwight Howard for
right in
Superman
front of
or
the
some
trademark
shit.
office. Me and you, like one of us, got.
I think they did a song together.
I know that's what I'm saying. I still can't believe it. Like this has got to be settled.
We got to come together.
It's still
No. We got to. The town ain't big enough for the both of us.
I guess I would say I'm familiar with a lot of this stuff, but I don't fuck with a lot of it.
No, I feel
I'm very
you.
few and far between these dudes.
It's not
modern dudes.
It's not for us.
Yeah.
But I think the love of the game is still in us. All right, let's leave them with something to listen to. So one album
400 degrees
that you want everybody who's listening to listen to that maybe they haven't heard in a minute. Something that really hits you that you love. Like if your nephew was like, yo, what do you want me to fuck with? And you say,
Fear of a Black Parent.
Fear of a Black Planet is a fantastic,
That's not Fear of a Black Parent.
fantastic thing.
And then I wouldn't worry about that kid for the rest of his life. I'd be like, you gonna be all right. Just listen to this.
You're gonna be all
You gonna
right.
be all right.
I'm gonna sit here and overthink this like all the way into the ground. Like this is.
And then when you leave, you go have another thought.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
What'll keep you up tonight?
And I would throw one out there, Adam. Just not because it's the greatest record of all time. I do think it's like the overlooked great album from a great MC, and I just need to make sure more people remember it, including him, because in his book he said he did not remember making it because all he was doing was using drugs and listening to Van Morrison. Scarface, Last of a Dying Breed, is the one before The Fix. It's about as good as The Fix and has maybe the most gangster moment in the history of rap. Scarface calling DEA agents out by name on record and getting them pulled off the streets.
Love that.
Whoa!
Love that.
Whoa! That was a bold move.
It takes me back to when Funkmaster Flex would say, there's a cop car waiting at 278th Street, y'all, so don't speed when you go. Watch out on 70. I loved him for that. Yo, De La Soul is dead. Y'all
Actually, you know what? You mentioned De La. Actually, this is where my De La comes in. The one I'd say everybody listen to. De La Soul stakes is high. Now this stuff is finally back on streaming. All they did was tell us everything that was going to happen to the rap gang. Laid it all out right there.
See, I love
and it
De
all
La
did.
Soul is Dead because they are in conversation with themselves about who they are, how you see them. And to me, that extrapolates to a conversation about what does it mean to be black. And we're from the suburbs, we're hippies. That don't mean we're not black, right? And the skits are kind of saying, are you? You're whack. And they're like beating people up in the record and on tour to be like, yo, we're actually niggas. Like, what the fuck? But only built for Cuban links. Y'all must fuck with that. When that
Incarcerated Scarfaces.
when that shit gets going, when he gets going, because like I'm saying, I have like a sense memory when he gets in the beat on that shit, and it's like a point guard dribbling into the lane like some Kyrie shit, and I'm on a different rhythm than y'all. I could spin around y'all, and y'all don't understand what I'm doing, and I can finish in your face, even though you're 6 feet taller than me.
Second best Wu-Tang solo album of all time.
Hold on, what's your first?
Liquid Swords.
Yeah, that you know what that is? That one is a matter of taste choice. Like which Wu-Tang solo you go with. I thought you were going to go with Supreme Clientele. I go with Only Built for Cuban Links. I get why. Like the thing about Supreme Clientele is what people love about it is what you'll hate about it, which is fucker.
That's a lot
And
of
once you divorce yourself from that question, it's a very enjoyable listen.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Like when I have to come into your world, I did not understand we don't understand what the fuck Wu-Tang is
But
talking
isn't that
about.
fun though?
I gotta figure it out. I gotta listen again. When LA came out and I started to respect LA and they're talking about birds and this, I'm like, I don't know what their slang for gun. I don't know what they mean by birds. All the Bompton and shit. I don't know what they're talking. I got to get with my friend who's LA and like, oh, this means this. This means, oh, now I understand deeper what Cube is talking. And I appreciate that work that I have to do. I did not understand you the first time. And you probably knew. Outside of Southern California, you are not going to understand what I'm talking about.
because
But
they
fuck with me, and you'll get it
They
later.
weren't thinking about nothing outside of Southern California.
you.
Like that was the thing about California rap that everybody lost sight of is you could go platinum without anybody east of San Bernardino having any idea who you. MC Ren put out an EP after NWA broke up that went platinum that I assure you've never listened to a note of.
Got me.
Mac 10 was going gold and like it's over there. It's way over there.
It's dope. Man, the death conversation is still with me, man. I just thought of Nipsey also when you said that. You know, I wasn't hip to him before he died. I wonder what he would have been.
And he is kind of like, for me, was the testament of what we are talking about is missing in the sense that it is a hyper-local music, right? Rap is better when it is hyper-local. I say the same thing about college football. It's better when it's local. And that was the most hyper-local dude that I could think of. And I can't think of anybody else that's like that the rest of us are aware of. Like maybe there's some dude that's like that in all of these cities and we just don't know because we ain't been there.
Right.
But there was something about that era where somebody would tell you about a rapper from another city and there was something. It was like kind of how people are about burger joints now, right? Where somebody like before everybody knew about In-N-Out,
right?
There was like a badge of honor to be like, yeah, I know about In-N-Out Burger. I went out to California,
that's
whatever
kind of
it is, right? Shout out to Bun, by the way, with the Trill Burger. Got
have you had
wrapped, lines wrapped around the
But
block.
that to me is kind of the problem with just music in general, that it used to be sort of monocultural. We're all listening to The Chronic. So we're all talking about The Chronic. We're all talking about Illmatic or whatever it is. And now we're so fractured that you'll be like, yo, I'm fucking with this, this, and this. And I'm like, yo, I've never heard of those people, but I'm fucking with this, this, and this.
It's called the internet.
Right.
So there's
just too much of this shit.
But Roy Wood makes a great point about music conversation on the internet, where it's like, it used to be that you had to pay $12 to have an opinion.
That's exactly
You were not allowed to enter this conversation until you had made some investment, and perhaps then there would be some study, and you had some skin in the game, so you weren't so inclined to say it was great or it was whack. Like you really had to think about it because you'd actually made some level of investment. Back in the day, you used to have to earn your way out of your city, right? You had to win over the locals before anybody else ever found out about you.
Yeah, that gold mystical tape.
Yeah, now you just got to catch on.
That gold mystical tape?
The $12 is an important thing. But what I miss also
albums
is the mix. No, I miss albums.
Yeah.
but the mixtape era, which wasn't just about paying the money, but you got to go find it.
Yes.
Because the album is in your face. Where Def Jam wants you to, the mixtape, I have to know Ron G comes out on Friday. I got to go to my man and get the CD or whoever it is, right? And like, guys would do things on mixtape they wouldn't do on their albums. Flows, dictions, trying to
beats you never heard.
You're talking about wild shit that they're not talking about on the album. Like, yo, that Busta, that Fat Joe, like you gave me. Or I found somebody new I never heard of, and he blew up on a Busta track
with wildly varying sound qualities that added to the charm.
I'm riding over your beat that I love from this over here. Like, yo, I'm a fan of so and so. I never heard of him before.
I remember the first time I came to New York. It was the spring of '98. Me and my brother, we was on Canal, we was on somewhere else. We just getting these tapes. Like, I remember my brother had come up because he was trying to do beats, and this is like '95, I want to say. And he'd come up to New York, you know, that's what you do. You come to New York and try to shop your wares. Like, I don't really understand how it worked that you was really gonna catch on, right? What'd you do? Just went to New York. I'm gonna have some tapes out. We gonna see what happens,
Let's
right?
see what happens.
But I remember him coming back with the tapes. Like, I remember he came back with, this may have been '93, I forget when, but he came back with a copy of The Roots' Do You Want More like a year before it got into stores because the demo tape had been bouncing around because it had gotten such a big thing. And that would be this thing. You go to New York and then you just come back with this stuff that you couldn't get anywhere else. And we thought with the internet it would be cool because then it wouldn't be that hard. What if it was better when it was a little bit hard?
It was hard. Finding Nipsey's album, you had to go to the fucking swap meet. That first joint that Jay-Z bought for $100, and then we had to see what it was. I love the process of discovery, of having to find it. That's all gone. I mean, I guess I could go through SoundCloud if I want to.
That's the thing, man.
It's not the same.
How am I supposed to stop?
I do miss going to Circuit City every Thursday. But for that No Limit release that came out every Thursday. Every single Thursday.
That's now my impression of Mike Smith in high school. That Mercedes come in yet?
You already know what I was thinking.
Did you listen to it?
It's the greatest album cover of all time right there.
Oh, you don't know the
that album
Mercedes
came
tape.
out. Did that album come out?
Did.
Okay.
I think it did. But the Mercedes tape was in every No Limit cover. Was that, what was it called? Rear End? Was that the title of it?
That's exactly what it was.
I gotta say, I knew it, but I didn't realize. When I was planning this, I did not fully contemplate that you guys are way younger than me, and also that you guys are super Southern.
I'm 43, 42, right? Yeah.
That you guys are super Southern. Yeah. So that has been a big part of this conversation that I didn't expect.
Yeah, y'all need that in y'all's lives.
I'm about to say, and if you had this conversation with two West Coast dudes, it'd be a whole different conversation. That's what's so fascinating. You could do 3, 4, 5 iterations of this.
Yes.
And it'll be completely different names that come up.
Hell yeah.
You know?
But I also think, though, we from the South, though, at a time where the Southern music was rising, but we didn't have the option of segregating ourselves off in that way. Like, we were still influenced by everybody else.
Did you feel
100%.
I don't want to say hate, but New York was definitely looking down our nose at the South.
South got something to say.
Yeah, you felt that?
I felt it when I went to Atlanta for college. I didn't so much feel it in Houston because my sensibilities musically were more in line with the stuff that was coming out of New York. And so when I got to college and I was around people from New York, my expectation is that, cool, now I'm with people who on the same wavelength as me and and all that. And it became very clear to me, I hated those dudes. I hated them so much. And they was talking crazy about me and mine. And it honestly made me appreciate Southern rap even more. It made me check myself perhaps on some of the assumptions I might have made about some of that music and then go back and be like, oh, okay, I was slipping. Because it was like the whole true hip-hop stuff and everything else. And if you into that music, the rappers are telling you that what they doing is the real and everything else is fake. You know, you got a teenage mind. You being molded by all of that. And then I got around them New Yorkers and the next wave of New York rap I didn't like. And so, I turned into a radical after that point.
Didn't mention Black Star. Just felt like I need to do that. Just for GP.
Black Star.
Most Def tell it. But to answer your question, I feel like hate no, because as Bo pointed out, like New Orleans is like there's Southern rap and there's New Orleans. And New Orleans just had like its own shit going on. And I was in this little bubble. Plus, it's like the South was just making some crazy, amazing shit that you mentioned. Scarface, Outkast. It was undeniable. So yes,
it was undeniable at a certain point.
That point.
But there was an earlier point when New York could still, quote unquote reasonably be like, y'all ain't shit. And then there was
And
a
it
point
would
where it's
be
like,
legitimate.
you can't front.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
the
And
South
that was
is
like,
South,
that
the
was
South is
94, 95, 96. And we just say we beat the shit out of
But
them
the
at that
thing
point.
was, we knew more about New York music than New
Of course.
Yorkers knew about theirs because
Totally.
New York was such an insular place.
Yeah.
And so I think that there were probably some things that they could have come across and might have been able to rock with. But honestly, there wasn't no need to, as far as they were concerned, to even go find this. Like, if the thing about New York when you live here that people don't get is what's so confining about it is the fact that you ain't got to go nowhere if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Like, whatever you need is within.
right here, yeah.
But that travel piece that you're mentioning, right? That we can stay in that's part of it, right? New York is listening on headphones and boom boxes, right? The South, the Midwest, and the West is in cars.
Yeah.
And the sound of the music.
that's a
reflects.
big
It sounds
difference.
better,
You're right.
right? It sounds bigger.
It means
Y'all
something
also-
different.
the South
it
also-
means something
it
different.
means- the
What you
South-
driving by with your windows down?
The
That
South also had later than the Northeast a church experience, right?
Yes.
And some people did, but that church experience is such a massive impact on black music in general. And y'all had that later. Even for you to say, my grandfather was, how many of these MCs are like, my grandfather was a preacher?
Yeah.
And you grew up listening to him and you bring that into the booth with you,
That,
right?
yeah.
Not that many New Yorkers are doing that, are coming from that.
Well, and also, rap in New York is a much more West Indian experience. Like in the formative period of time. Like, we're talking about people who are coming from different musical influences.
Well,
So-
this is one of the things I'm talking about. And this other thing I'm working on, this other podcast I'm working on. Jamaica is a crucial father of hip hop.
That's what I'm saying.
Kool Herc comes from Kingston, and he just did in New York what he had seen in Kingston with the sound systems, right? With the replaying the record over there, talking over the record, toasting over the record. He just did the same. So you just took Kingston culture and did it in New York, and we were like, oh my God, that's amazing. And we made a whole culture out of it. But Jamaica is a critical, but you're saying the South wasn't really responding to Jamaica.
I'm saying
in the
everywhere
same
else
way.
but New York. Like, New York, when you really go through like the great rappers of the 80s and 90s out of New York, it's not too long till either you get into somebody West Indian or this is largely outer borough stuff. Like who's in the neighborhood.
Totally.
The Queens guys are interesting because it's the jazz, like all the Q-tips and all of them are in the same part of Queens as the Jazzmen were, and you can like find the straight line that comes out of that. But rap is a more African American experience in the nascent days of it outside of New York than it is in New York. That's not good. That's not bad. But it's just a
you're saying
different line.
The South and the West is more African American, and New York is more,
Getting more Jamaican, yes.
Caribbean.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. Not saying that's good or bad.
No,
just
no,
to
just
be
what
clear.
it is.
But it's but when you then also start thinking about what are the beats that we sampling down south? What are the beats like? The LA beats are really just a lot of that robo funk, like Zapp and
Funk.
Roger, people, a lot of like that sort of stuff. The South samples are less the James Brown that you got from up here that's
Right.
more percussive, but a lot more this the soul,
Of
going and
course.
getting Eugene
Yeah.
McDaniel type stuff
There's
and everything
this
else.
great connection between the South and the West Coast, right? Because if you are from the West Coast,
You're from the South.
your family come from the South,
Which is
right?
which is not the straight line case in New York as it is everywhere else.
Exactly. It may be longer ago.
Throw
right?
Midwest in there too.
No,
Right,
no. What it is that you still had the people that caught the railroad up to New York from, say, Florida or South Carolina, whatever it is. But you also had people who came on boats.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
From yeah.
Right.
I like to
And,
think
and that's
about,
what you don't have.
Like Snoop, his people are from Mississippi.
Yes.
He rhymes like that.
Yes.
Right? Like I can hear the sing-songiness, the way he talks, right? You can hear a Southern twang in there, right? That's where his people are.
Yep.
So the South and the West are kind of like connecting, like we're brothers, right? New York was like, we're doing something different.
South,
Yeah. Right.
Southwest and Midwest united against y'all.
Yeah, that's also
Yes.
but that's also why
Yes.
Chicago rap sound the way that
Yeah.
it did for so long.
Yeah.
Before you even the drill place, which is very Southern influence.
You know what I still really wonder about this. DC still hasn't really spoken
Never
up.
happened. Never got there for whatever reason.
Still,
they got go and they was good.
They talk about go. I'm like, but everywhere there's a large community of black people, there's a major hip hop scene.
It's the one that didn't.
DC is the one that hasn't
But as
done it.
we talked about earlier, rap got to different places at different times. And you're right, in DC, like you had like nonchalant, like Question Mark Asylum, Wale, you know, like, so I think, well, Corday's from over there in PG or somewhere, I want to say. But you're right. It never.
And it's not fronting on the people who came out of there.
No, Go-Go had a moment, but DC
Chicago,
rap never had a moment. Chicago had
LA,
a moment.
the Bay, New York, like we could go down the population, top 10 black populations, right? Ohio's had something.
I mean,
right?
Boston's had way more than DC has had.
I mean, that's pathetic. There ain't that many black people in Boston.
Hey,
but
I don't need Dart coming to fight me. He got to come get you for this one.
Where's DC? Come on, y'all. I want to hear from y'all.
I mean, Philadelphia's an hour. I mean, DC and Baltimore.
Philadelphia
didn't have in Baltimore either.
Philadelphia has had a very rich history.
It's foundational.
Yes.
Dope history.
It's foundational.
Newark has had more of a history than DC.
Yeah.
And it's not hating. I'm like, I want to hear what y'all have to say.
Cleveland.
Yeah, this is Ohio.
Cleveland.
Yeah.
Bone Thugs and Ray Cash.
You sound like LeBron Cleveland.
And Ray Cash. Hey, man, I mean, I have wondered this for a very long time myself.
It can't be just go-go. There's got to be more to this.
But go-go becomes its own interesting thing itself, right? Like worthy of its own study and very hip-hop influenced after you got to a point. So you get Backyard Band and all them cats. Like they play in rap songs.
Very African.
Yes.
Absolutely. This has been beautiful. You guys are dope. Thank you so much for coming and bringing the funk and the spirit and everything else. And I think we all can do this because we love hip hop so much.
Oh, yeah.
And it's such a part of our spirit and our heart and who we are. I mean, I definitely think there's a lot of rappers who helped shape the person that I've become.
Oh,
right?
oh,
And
yeah.
all of us would say that.
Absolutely.
So, hell yeah.
Absolutely. The way we think, the way we speak, the way we dress.
Shit.
Everything.
I did not know who Minister Farrakhan was till Chuck D started talking about him on the records.
You know?
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you,
Been
man.
the shit.
You, man. Thank
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Hey, man, appreciate you.
Thank you.
Love, bro.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you.
Thank you.